Hey, I'm John Cannell, and today on Preppy Kitchen, we're making some crispy and flavorful sourdough biscuits. So let's get started. First off, preheat your oven to 425 so it's nice and hot. And now in a large bowl, we're gonna combine our dry ingredients. Start off with 2 cups or 240 grams of all-purpose flour. So easy to have the perfect amount if you're using a scale. To puff things up, 1 tablespoon of baking powder and a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. By the way, this recipe is the perfect thing to make. If you have some sourdough starter hanging out, you always have some discard to use. The sourdough is gonna give you a lovely depth of flavor, and these biscuits are fluffy, flaky, crisp, and amazing. 2 teaspoons of granulated sugar. This will give us the slightest hint of sweetness. And 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt for some contrast. My scale is done. Grab a whisk, and we're gonna mix this up. So whisk, whisk, whisk until it's all together. Setting this aside for just a moment because I need to grab 6 tablespoons of butter that's ice cold and give it a cube. 6 tablespoons or 87 grams. Just cut this up into small cubes. My butter's all cubed up. We're gonna add this into our flour. Sprinkle it in so it's not all clumped together. Nobody wants a clump. Now we're gonna work this together either with a pastry cutter or your clean hands until we have little pea-sized pieces left. My butter is now nice and small, but it's not too tiny and totally blended in. These little clumps of butter are the secret to having a beautiful flaky biscuit. They're gonna kind of expand and steam up in the oven and give us those lovely layers. Set this aside and we're gonna get our wet ingredients together. Now in a medium bowl, I wanna add 1 cup or 240 grams of my sourdough starter. It could be freshly fed or discard, either is gonna work. We're gonna thin this out with a 1/4 cup of buttermilk or milk. Today I'm using buttermilk because it's gonna give me a little bit more of a tender biscuit. Buttermilk is slightly acidic, and whenever you have acidic things with flour, the acid will inhibit the gluten from forming and give you a more tender baked good. That's also why you use sour cream. Whisk it up. We just want to loosen things up so that it incorporates really well with our dough. There we go, nice and slack. Back to our big bowl, we're gonna add the wet to the dry. Get all of that starter out. I think biscuits are like the perfect side dish. They go with anything. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or all by themselves with some butter and jam, and they make everything better. This gets folded together really gently, so just use your spatula and bring it together until it's a nice shaggy mixture. This mixture looks a little dry to me, so you can add buttermilk or milk in 2 teaspoons at a time until it's a nice cohesive mass. 1, 2. I ended up adding an extra tablespoon or so. You just want it to kind of form together and not have a clump of powder hanging out. It's still gonna be very sticky, shaggy, and messy though. Right now, we're gonna knead this in the bowl 2 to 3 times to bring it together. And by the way, if you like my videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. There's 2 new recipes every single week. My dough's come together. I'm gonna set this aside just for a second. And add some flour to my countertop. Turn this out. Right now we're gonna give our biscuits that lovely flaky texture by pressing this down into a 1/2 inch thick rectangle. Lightly flouring your hands really helps for this. Once you have a 1/2 inch thick rectangle, we're gonna fold this into thirds just like a letter. 1 and 2. Once folded, rotate and press again. We're gonna repeat this process 2 more times. This will really build up those layers. And a bench scraper really helps if things are getting sticky. 1 and 2. Rotate. Last fold. And now we're gonna press this into a 6x4 inch, 1 inch thick rectangle. So that's 6x4 inches or so. Now use your bench scraper to cut this into 2x2 inch squares. And you can score it just so you know that things are gonna be okay. We flour. And now just cut these up. And you can see lovely layers all throughout from that folding process. Plop these onto your baking sheet, just give them a little bit of space. This is an optional step, but you can brush the tops with buttermilk. It'll make them look a little bit prettier, but not the sides, just the top. We want the sides to be free so they have that like flaky height. My biscuits are ready. You can do 2 things. Pop them into the freezer for 15 minutes so that butter solidifies and they really have a lovely flakiness to them, or put them straight into the oven, 425 for 16 to 18 minutes until they are golden and puffed. These are going to the freezer, then the oven. Perfectly baked out of the oven, and look at these layers. This is the perfect biscuit to enjoy with lots of butter and a healthy helping of jam. And just like that, they're ready to enjoy. Amazing taste, and I love the contrast of the flaky, crispy outside with that soft, pillowy inside. I hope you had a chance to make this delicious recipe, and if you like my videos, hit that subscribe button and check out my sourdough playlist.